$2.8 million in just 3 months, shattering every sales record in our company's 30-year history. Even with these numbers, I managed, keeping my voice level despite the sudden hollow feeling spreading through my chest. He glanced at the report with practiced indifference. Numbers aren't everything, Quinn. Anyone could do what you do given the right circumstances. Anyone. The word stung worse than it should have. 13-hour days, weekends spent studying client production systems, custom proposals tailored to each business's unique challenges, all dismissed with a single word. I see, I said, watching as he tapped his gold pen against my report, the pen he'd bought after collecting the bonus my sales had earned him. About your commission, he continued, sliding a paper toward me. We're capping it at standard rates. Company policy. I stared at the figure. It was less than a quarter of what I'd earned based on our agreed structure. This isn't what we discussed when I took this position. He shrugged. Exceptional circumstances require adjustments. The board feels your numbers are anomalous. We can't set compensation precedents based on outliers. Outliers. That's what he called breaking every sales record in company history. I've brought in more revenue than the entire Eastern Division combined, I said quietly. And we appreciate that, he replied, not bothering to look up as he closed my file. But let's be realistic. You got lucky with timing and market conditions. Lightning doesn't strike twice. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, exactly. Something colder, more calculated. The Merston account renewed today, I said. 3-year contract. They doubled their order. This got his attention. Merston was our biggest client. He'd been trying to land them for years before I arrived. They specifically asked for you? They did. He leaned back, a small smile forming. Well, I'll handle them going forward. They need a more experienced touch. He glanced at his watch. Is there anything else? I have a leadership meeting in 5. Leadership. As if he'd done anything to earn the title beyond taking credit for others' work. No, I said, gathering my things. Nothing else. As I reached the door, he called after me. Quinn, I meant what I said. You're replaceable. Everyone is. I turned, meeting his eyes. Interesting perspective. What he didn't know was that I'd recorded our entire conversation. What he couldn't see was that in my purse sat signed letters from our 5 largest clients. What he couldn't possibly imagine was that I'd spent the last month preparing for exactly this moment. He thought I was replaceable. He was about to learn how wrong he was. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach right now, that mix of outrage and anticipation, take a quick second to hit like and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how Quinn turns this situation around, and I'd hate for you to miss the moment her boss realizes exactly who he's dealing with. My name is Quinn Tandy, and until that quarterly review, I'd believed hard work spoke for itself. Growing up in Cedar Springs, a small town dominated by 3 manufacturing plants, I watched how business worked from both sides. My mother operated a small machine shop that served the larger factories, and from age 12, I spent afternoons there, learning how each component fit into the larger systems. When sales representatives visited, I observed the dance, the promises, the technical jargon, the handshakes. Most of all, I noticed which promises were kept and which weren't. When I was 16, a slick salesman convinced my mother to invest in an automated lathe system. It'll triple your production capacity, he'd promised. What he didn't mention were the compatibility issues with our existing equipment, the specialized training required, or the proprietary software that came with crippling annual fees. 6 months later, the bank took everything. After college, I swore I'd never be that kind of salesperson. With my mechanical engineering degree and first-hand understanding of production challenges, I took a different approach. When I joined Integrated Manufacturing Solutions 18 months ago, I didn't see clients as commission checks. I saw people with problems I could actually solve. My boss, Devin, had built his career on high-pressure tactics and upselling clients on equipment they didn't need. The sales team followed his example, pushing whatever carried the highest margins regardless of client needs. They moved fast, closed quickly, and rarely heard from clients again. My first week, Devin pulled me aside after I spent 3 days researching a client's operation before making recommendations. You're wasting time, he said. Here's how we do things. Pitch the premium package, create urgency, close within 2 calls. Simple. I nodded, but continued my approach. When my first client renewed their contract and ordered additional equipment within a month, Devin dismissed it as beginner's luck. When it happened again, he called it coincidence. By the end of my first quarter, I'd outperformed every other team member by 60%. That's when the atmosphere changed. Devin began scheduling client meetings when I was unavailable. Information about new leads mysteriously failed to reach my desk. My access to certain client files became temporarily restricted due to system updates. Still, word spread. Clients began asking for me specifically. The manufacturing world is smaller than most realize. Plant managers talk. Production heads share information. My name started circulating as someone who actually understood production challenges. 6 months in, I doubled the previous annual sales record. Devin's response was to implement a team selling approach, where he joined all my client meetings. Suddenly, my solutions became our recommendations, and eventually, Devin's strategic approach. In company-wide emails, Devin positioned himself as the architect of this revolutionary client-centered methodology. In reality, he was actively undermining it, pushing team members to continue aggressive sales tactics while taking credit for my results. What changed everything was the Merston contract. For years, this international manufacturing giant had purchased minimum orders from us, spread across multiple divisions, with no centralized approach. Devin had tried and failed to consolidate their business. I spent weekends studying Merston's entire operation, identifying inefficiencies between their divisions. Instead of pitching products, I presented a comprehensive analysis showing how integrated systems could reduce their production costs by 22%. Their executive team was stunned. "You understand our challenges better than we do," their operations director said. The resulting contract was unprecedented: unified equipment solutions across all divisions, a 3-year commitment, and a value of $1.8 million. It single-handedly boosted company revenue by 40%. The morning after signing, I arrived to find Devin presenting his Merston strategy to the executive team. I wasn't invited to the meeting. That afternoon, my performance metrics disappeared from the company dashboard. When I inquired, I was told there had been data integration issues. My commission check that month was calculated incorrectly, missing the Merston numbers entirely. "Accounting error," Devin assured me. "We'll correct it next cycle." They never did. I began keeping detailed records of everything: emails, contracts, client communications. I recorded meetings, saved voicemails, and documented every interaction with Devin. Something fundamental had changed inside me. The naive belief that excellence would be recognized had died. 3 more major accounts followed Merston's lead, each choosing our company specifically because of my approach. By the third quarter, I managed relationships representing 70% of total company revenue. Our stock price climbed 30%. Devin received a Leadership Excellence Award and a 6-figure bonus. I received a coffee mug with the company logo. Then came the Wilson opportunity. Wilson Manufacturing was the industry giant, the white whale every sales team chased. Their equipment purchases influenced the entire sector. Landing them would transform our company overnight. Through a connection at Merston, I secured a meeting with Wilson's procurement team. They were skeptical but agreed to hear my pitch. Rather than pushing products, I spent 3 weeks analyzing their operations, identifying specific bottlenecks in their production flow. My presentation to their executive team was scheduled for a Monday. The Friday before, Devin called me into his office. "Great news," he said. "I'll be handling the Wilson presentation. The CEO wants a senior leader managing this relationship." "But I've done all the preparation," I protested. "I know their systems inside out. Just send me your notes," he replied. "This is too important to leave to chance." That weekend, I sent him a truncated version of my analysis, keeping the key insights to myself. Monday morning, I called Wilson's VP of Operations directly. "There's been a miscommunication," I explained. "I wanted to personally assure you that I'll remain your primary contact throughout this process." "That's not what we heard," he replied. "Your boss informed us yesterday that he'd be overseeing our account personally." The conversation confirmed what I'd suspected. Devin had already contacted them, positioning himself as the visionary while relegating me to a supporting role. The Wilson presentation went forward with Devin at the helm. Without my complete analysis, he fumbled technical questions and made promises our systems couldn't fulfill. The Wilson team, initially excited, grew increasingly skeptical. When they asked about specific integration challenges I'd previously identified, Devin dismissed their concerns as easily manageable without providing details. They left unconvinced. Later that week, Wilson signed with our main competitor. Devin called an emergency team meeting. "We lost Wilson because our materials weren't persuasive enough," he announced, looking directly at me. "Some team members need to remember that sales is about relationships, not just technical details." As others nodded, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about recognition or commission. Devin's approach was actively harming clients, our company, and everyone's livelihood except his own. That night, I made a decision. I began by mapping the company's entire client relationship structure, identifying which accounts were truly mine versus which belonged to the company. I studied our supplier contracts, territory agreements, and non-compete clauses with forensic precision. What I discovered changed everything. Most of our exclusive supplier relationships weren't with the company at all. They were tied to Devin's position. The territory rights, the preferential pricing, the priority fulfillment guarantees, all were contractually assigned to the senior sales director rather than the company itself. Devin had created a structure where he was indispensable while ensuring everyone else remained replaceable. Or so he thought. The quarterly review where he told me I was replaceable wasn't just an insult, it was the final confirmation I needed. As I walked out of his office that day, my plan was already taking shape. That evening after the quarterly review, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by stacks of contracts, supplier agreements, and client records. A half-empty glass of Cabernet balanced precariously on a tower of files as I traced connections between accounts. 3 things had become crystal clear. First, our clients were loyal to me, not the company. Second, Devin had structured the supplier agreements to make himself seemingly irreplaceable. Third, he had no idea how thoroughly I understood the business architecture he'd built. The next morning, I arrived at work an hour early. The office was nearly empty, just the night security guard finishing his shift and the receptionist setting up coffee. "Morning, Quinn," she said. "You're here before even Devin today." I smiled. Big day ahead. I headed straight to the server room. As the person who managed our largest client relationships, I had access to our entire client database, Access. Devin had never bothered to restrict because he couldn't imagine anyone understanding the full picture. For the next 45 minutes, I downloaded specific documents, not client lists or proprietary information, but rather the structural agreements that governed our business relationships, the territorial exclusivity contracts, the supplier relationship terms, the commission structure frameworks. None of this was confidential from me. I was authorized to see it all. I was simply creating a personal reference archive. By the time Devon strolled in at 9:15, I was at my desk, calmly reviewing proposals for the Thompson account. "Quinn," he said, stopping by my desk, "I need the Merston renewal paperwork for the executive meeting this afternoon." "Already sent it to your email," I replied without looking up, "along with the updated projections you asked for." He lingered, perhaps surprised by my lack of visible reaction to yesterday's review. Finally, he said, "Good. And remember, I'll handle all communication with them going forward." I looked up and smiled pleasantly. "Of course." The moment he walked away, I sent a text to Laurel Merston, their operations director. "Lunch today? Need to discuss implementation timeline. The usual place? 12:30? Her response came immediately. "See you there." Over the next 3 hours, I made 7 similar arrangements with key clients. Not a single communication went through company channels. Not a single meeting appeared on my calendar. At 12:15, I walked past Devin's office, heading to grab lunch, back in an hour. He barely glanced up. "Try not to be late. We have the staff meeting at 2. The restaurant was a small bistro 10 blocks from the office, far enough that no one from the company ever went there. Laurel was already seated when I arrived, nursing a sparkling water. "Quinn," she said warmly, "I was surprised to get your text. Devin called this morning saying he'd be our new point person. That's actually why I wanted to meet," I said, sliding into the booth. "Things are changing at the company, and I wanted to give you advance notice." Her expression tightened. "What kind of changes?" "I'm considering new opportunities," I said carefully, "and I wanted to discuss what that might mean for clients I've worked closely with." For the next 30 minutes, I laid out specific concerns, how Devin's approach differed from mine, the push toward higher margin products, regardless of fit, the likelihood that the personalized solutions I'd developed would be replaced by standardized packages. I never disparaged the company directly. I never breached confidentiality. I simply presented facts about differences in sales philosophy. "This is concerning," Laurel said finally. "We renewed specifically because of your approach. The board approved the contract based on the customized implementation plan you developed. I nodded. I understand. And I want to be clear. I haven't made any decisions yet. I simply felt you deserved transparency. What would you do? She asked bluntly. If you were in my position? I took a sip of water. I'd review the contract termination clauses, just to understand your options. As I walked back to the office, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Laurel. Just checked. 30-day written notice required for termination without cause. Interesting timing. We have our quarterly review next week. I smiled. The first domino was tipping. Over the next 3 days, I had similar conversations with 7 other key clients. Not once did I suggest they leave the company. Not once did I make promises about future arrangements. I simply provided information about the changing internal dynamics and let them draw their own conclusions. By Friday, my phone was buzzing constantly with texts from concerned clients. Each conversation followed the same pattern. They'd received calls from Devin introducing himself as their new account manager. They were concerned about changes to their customized solutions, and they were reviewing their contract terms. Meanwhile, Devin remained oblivious. In the Friday staff meeting, he announced a new standardized solution approach to streamline our offerings. We're spending too much time on customization, he explained. The new model will focus on 3 core packages with minimal modifications. This will increase our margins by an estimated 30%. Across the table, our technical director frowned. But Quinn's customized approach is what's driving our record numbers. Devin smiled thinly. That model isn't sustainable or scalable. We're making this change effective immediately. As the meeting disbanded, Devin pulled me aside. I need you to transition all your client notes and relationship details to me by Monday. Complete documentation. Complete documentation, I repeated. Of course, I'll have everything ready. That weekend, I made 2 critical moves. First, I compiled detailed files on each client relationship, their production challenges, their specific needs, the solutions we'd implemented, and the results achieved. These were immaculate, thorough, and completely useless without the context and relationships I'd built. Like handing someone sheet music when they couldn't read a note. Second, I contacted Vince Reynolds, a former colleague who had started his own manufacturing consultancy. We met at a quiet cafe on Sunday afternoon. I've been hoping you'd call, he said after I outlined the situation. I've been watching your success from afar. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. I'm exploring options, I said carefully. He leaned forward. Let me be direct. Join my firm as a partner. Bring your approach. We'll split everything 50-50. No corporate politics, no ceiling on commissions, and complete control over client relationships. I have non-compete clauses, I pointed out. He smiled. I've reviewed them. They prevent you from selling competing products within the territory. They don't prevent you from consulting on implementation, optimization, or strategy. The difference is significant legally. I considered his offer. I need time to think about it. Of course, he said, sliding a folder across the table. But when you decide, this partnership agreement is ready for your signature. Monday morning arrived with a strange calm. I placed the client documentation on Devin's desk before he arrived, then returned to my office. At exactly 9, my phone rang. It was Richard from Wilson Manufacturing, the account we'd lost. Quinn, he said without preamble, we're reconsidering our equipment decisions. Are you available to discuss options? I'd be happy to, I replied. But I should mention that all client relationships are being transitioned to our sales director. There was a pause. We're specifically requesting you. If that's not possible, we'll pursue other options. Let me see what I can arrange, I said. I'll call you back this afternoon. I walked directly to Devin's office. He was reviewing my client files with visible frustration. There's nothing useful here, he complained. Just technical specifications and implementation notes. Where are the relationship details? The personal information? The leverage points? That's everything, I said simply. Those relationships were built on understanding their technical needs, not leveraging personal information. He scowled. Wilson Manufacturing called. They want to reconsider their decision, but they're asking specifically for you. I just heard from them as well, I said. Devin's expression shifted to calculation. I'll handle the initial meeting. You can attend as support. Actually, I countered. They specifically said they want me to lead the discussion. They were quite clear about that condition. His face flushed. Fine, set it up, but I'll be there. I nodded. Of course. As I turned to leave, he added, and Quinn, remember who you work for. I smiled politely. I never forget that, Devin. The Wilson meeting was scheduled for Wednesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, something unusual happened. Devin's calendar suddenly cleared, and he announced he needed to handle an emergency with another client. "You'll have to take the Wilson meeting alone," he told me, not bothering to hide his irritation. "But I expect a complete briefing immediately after." I maintained a neutral expression. "No problem. I'll handle it." What Devin didn't know was that the emergency had been carefully orchestrated. 3 of our major clients had simultaneously requested urgent meetings with him for Tuesday afternoon. Each had different concerns that only the sales director could address. Each had been strategically encouraged to reach out by their colleagues at other companies, colleagues I had built relationships with over the past year. The Wilson meeting went exactly as planned. I presented a comprehensive analysis of their production challenges, identifying 3 specific bottlenecks that were costing them millions annually. My proposed solution was elegant, practical, and significantly less expensive than what they'd contracted with our competitor. "This is remarkable," Richard said as I concluded. "Why weren't these insights shared in the previous presentation?" I chose my words carefully. "Different approaches to client solutions, I suppose." "Well, we're prepared to move forward," he said, "contingent on you managing the implementation personally." I maintained a professional tone. "I should note that our company is transitioning to a model where the sales director oversees all major accounts." Richard exchanged glances with his team. "That would be a deal breaker for us. We want your approach, your expertise, and your attention to our specific needs." "I understand," I said. "Let me discuss this internally and get back to you." When I returned to the office, Devin was waiting impatiently. "Well, did they sign?" "They're ready to," I reported. "A 3-year contract valued at approximately $2 million. His eyes widened. "That's nearly double what we originally proposed." "Yes," I agreed. "But there's a condition. They want me to personally manage the implementation." Devin waved dismissively. "Standard negotiation tactic. Once they've signed, we can transition them however we want." "They were quite adamant," I pressed. "They specifically said it was a deal breaker." He narrowed his eyes. "Handle it however you need to. Just get them signed by Friday." He paused, then added with a thin smile, "Good work, Quinn. See, the team approach is already paying dividends." I nodded and returned to my office, where I immediately emailed Richard. "Contract looks good. One modification needed on section 5.3 regarding account management. We'll send revised version tomorrow." The modified contract would include language specifying that Wilson's relationship was contingent on my direct involvement, with a 30-day termination option if management changed. Devin would never read the fine print. He never did. He trusted the legal team, who reported directly to him and did exactly what he asked. But I had developed a good relationship with Natalie in legal over the past year, bonding over our shared frustration with Devin's methods. She would ensure the language passed through without raising alarms. By Thursday afternoon, 4 more major clients had requested similar contract modifications. Each wanted assurance that their relationship was with me specifically, not just the company. Each insisted on termination clauses tied to account management changes. Devin, focused on closing numbers before the end of the quarter, approved everything without scrutiny. Each signed contract was another piece of leverage carefully put into place. Friday morning, Devin called an impromptu celebration. "Thanks to our new team approach, we've secured Wilson Manufacturing and renewed 4 major accounts. Drinks after work are on me." As the team cheered, his phone rang. His smile faltered as he listened. "What do you mean, verification? The contracts are signed." "Yes, I understand it's a large amount." "Fine, schedule it for Monday." He hung up, visibly annoyed. "Compliance wants to review the Wilson contract before processing. Bureaucratic nonsense." I maintained a neutral expression. Standard procedure for accounts that size. He shot me a suspicious look. "You seem unconcerned." I shrugged. "The contract is solid. Nothing to worry about." What Devin didn't realize was that Monday would bring much more than a compliance review. Monday would be the day everything changed. Over the weekend, I finalized my preparations. I organized all documentation, confirmed meeting schedules, and reviewed my options one last time. The path forward was clear, but timing would be everything. Monday morning arrived with a sense of inevitability. I dressed with particular care: charcoal pencil skirt, cream blouse, and the one luxury I'd allowed myself after the Merston deal, a pair of Valentino pumps that clicked with quiet authority on marble floors. In the elevator up to our office, I checked my phone. 5 text messages had arrived since dawn. From Laurel at Merston, board meeting at 11, decision will be made today. From Richard at Wilson, Compliance call scheduled for 10:30. Standing firm on our requirements. From Vince. Partnership paperwork filed. Ready when you are. From Natalie in Legal. Devin still hasn't reviewed Section 5.3 amendments. Moving forward as discussed. From Terry, our CFO. Need to speak with you before the executive meeting. My office, 9:15. The last message was unexpected. Terry and I had a cordial professional relationship, but we rarely communicated directly. As the company's financial officer, he saw all the numbers, including exactly how much revenue I'd generated versus what I'd been paid. The office was unusually quiet when I arrived. Devin's door was closed, which was typical on Monday mornings. He usually spent the first hour calling his golf buddies about their weekend games while pretending to review sales forecasts. At precisely 9:15, I knocked on Terry's door. "Come in, Quinn," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Unlike Devin's office with its ostentatious displays of success, Terry's space was minimalist and practical. "I've been reviewing the Wilson contract," he said without preamble. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "It's a significant deal. 3 years. Full systems integration." Terry nodded slowly. "Section 5.3 is interesting. Standard account management language," I said mildly. "No," Terry countered. "It's not. It specifically names you as the exclusive point of contact, with a 30-day termination option if you're removed from the account." I held his gaze. The client insisted. As did Merston, Crawford Technologies, Zendex Manufacturing, and Brightline Industries, he continued. 5 major accounts, all with nearly identical language, all representing 78% of our projected quarterly revenue. The percentage was actually 83%, but I didn't correct him. "The clients value consistency," I offered. Terry leaned forward. "Quinn, what's going on? This isn't just about account management, is it?" I considered my options carefully. Terry had always been fair, focusing on numbers rather than office politics. He'd also been the one who questioned my commission reductions, though he'd been overruled by Devin. "The clients are concerned about changes in our approach," I said carefully. "They've built relationships based on customized solutions rather than standardized packages." "Devin's new model," Terry said, nodding. "He presented it to the executive team last week, promised a 30% increase in margins, at the cost of client satisfaction and retention," I added. Terry was quiet for a moment. "You know there's an executive meeting at 11:30? Devin's presenting the quarterly projections, including the Wilson deal." "I'm aware. Are you planning to be there?" "I wasn't invited," I replied. Terry's mouth tightened. "You should be. I'll fix that." He paused. "One more question, Quinn. If these clients have termination options tied to your involvement, what happens if you leave?" I smiled slightly. "That would be unfortunate for the company, wouldn't it?" As I left Terry's office, my phone buzzed again. A text from Richard at Wilson. "Compliance call complete. They seem concerned about Section 5.3, holding firm as discussed." At 10:15, Devin finally emerged from his office, looking irritated. He spotted me and strode over. "Wilson is being difficult about some contract language," he snapped. "Fix it. They're insisting on keeping you as their point person." "I'm happy to continue working with them," I said. "That's not the point," he hissed. "No client dictates our internal structure. Tell them it's non-negotiable. If I do that, they'll likely invoke the termination clause," I pointed out. His face flushed. "What termination clause?" "Section 5.3, the account management provision with the 30-day exit option." Devin stared at me. "Show me." I pulled up the contract on my tablet and handed it to him. He scanned the section, his expression darkening. "This wasn't in the standard template," he said slowly. "The client requested specific language. Legal approved it. Without consulting me? The email approvals are all there," I said, swiping to show the communication chain. "You signed off on Tuesday afternoon." Devin's jaw tightened as he recognized his own cursory response. "Looks fine. Move forward." "This is unacceptable," he said, handing back the tablet. "I want this provision removed immediately." "The contract is already executed," I reminded him. "Both parties have signed. Any changes would require renegotiation." "Then renegotiate," he snapped. "I can try," I said doubtfully. But they were quite firm about this point. Devin checked his watch. "I have the executive meeting in an hour. Fix this by then." As he stormed off, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Terry, copying me on a meeting update. "Adding Quinn Tandy to today's executive review as the primary account manager for our 5 largest clients." At 11:20, I made my way to the executive conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see the leadership team assembling, Terry, our CFO, Marissa, the Chief Operating Officer, Paolo, the Chief Technology Officer, and Eleanor, our CEO. Devin was at the front of the room, arranging presentation materials. When I entered, he looked up in surprise. Quinn? This is an executive meeting. I invited her, Terry said before I could respond. Given that we're discussing accounts she manages. Devin's smile tightened. Actually, as I'll be covering in my presentation, we're transitioning to a team management approach. I'll be overseeing our key accounts directly. Eleanor, our CEO, looked between us with interest. Let's get started, shall we? Devin launched into his presentation with practiced confidence. Charts showed our record-breaking quarter. Graphs illustrated the unprecedented growth. Every slide reinforced a single narrative. The company was thriving under his leadership. As you can see, Devin said, advancing to a slide titled Strategic Vision, our new standardized solution model promises even greater margins in the coming quarters. We've already begun implementing this approach with our top accounts, including Wilson Manufacturing, Eleanor asked. Absolutely, Devin confirmed. They've just signed a 3-year agreement worth $3.2 million, a testament to our new direction. Interesting, Eleanor said, because I received a call from Richard Wilson this morning expressing concerns about changes to their account management. Devin faltered momentarily before recovering. Minor miscommunication, nothing to worry about. He specifically mentioned Section 5.3 of their contract, Eleanor continued. Something about account management continuity? All eyes turned to me. I remained silent, waiting. Devin cleared his throat. A standard provision simply confirms our commitment to quality service. It's not standard, Terry interjected. It specifically names Quinn as their exclusive point of contact and includes a 30-day termination option if she's removed from the account. Marissa leaned forward. Is this true? Devin's confident facade cracked slightly. A minor detail that we're adjusting. And Merston? Terry continued. And Crawford? And Zendex? And Brightline? All have identical provisions. The room went silent. I've also reviewed our supplier agreements, Terry added, opening a folder. Particularly interesting is the territorial exclusivity language. Rather than assigning rights to the company, they're specifically tied to the senior sales director position. Devin's face paled. That's standard industry practice. No, Terry countered. It's not. It creates a situation where supplier relationships are tied to a position rather than the organization. Eleanor fixed Devin with a penetrating stare. So, if you were to leave, we'd lose both our client base due to these special provisions and our supplier relationships due to the territorial language? Before Devin could respond, the conference room door opened. The receptionist looked apologetic for interrupting. I'm sorry, but there's an urgent situation. Representatives from Merston, Wilson, Crawford, Zendex, and Brightline are all on a conference call. They say it's regarding their contracts. Eleanor stood. Put them through to this room. The large screen on the wall flickered to life, revealing a split screen of 5 serious-faced executives. Good morning, Eleanor began. This is unexpected. Laurel from Merston spoke first. We apologize for the interruption, but we felt it necessary to address concerns directly. It's come to our attention that your company is changing its approach to client solutions and account management. We've invested in relationships built on customized solutions that address our specific production challenges, Richard from Wilson added. Any shift away from that approach would force us to reconsider our partnership. Specifically, Laurel continued, we understand that Quinn Tandy's role is being diminished despite language in our contracts, ensuring her continued involvement. Eleanor turned to Devin, her expression hardening. Is this accurate? Devin swallowed visibly. There's been a misunderstanding. Quinn remains a valued team member. That's not what she told us, Richard countered. She informed us that management was transitioning to a standardized solution model with account oversight shifting to the sales director. All eyes in the room turned to me. Quinn? Eleanor prompted. I simply provided factual information about internal changes when clients asked, I said calmly. As Devin announced in Friday's staff meeting, we're moving to 3 standardized packages with minimal customization to increase margins by 30%. Devin's expression shifted from shock to fury. You deliberately undermined company strategy. I ensured clients had accurate information about changes affecting their operations. I corrected. Transparency is part of the trust I've built with them. This is insubordination, Devin snapped. Eleanor raised a hand to silence him. Let me understand this clearly. Our 5 largest clients all have contracts allowing termination if Quinn is removed from their accounts. Meanwhile, our supplier agreements are structured so that if Devin leaves, we lose territorial exclusivity. That's correct, Terry confirmed. Eleanor looked at the screen. What exactly are you asking for? Laurel spoke for the group. We value Quinn's approach to our needs. We want assurance that this approach will continue without interference or arbitrary restrictions. Eleanor considered this, then turned to me. Quinn, what's your perspective here? The room fell silent. This was the moment everything hinged upon. I took a measured breath before speaking. For 18 months, I've built relationships based on understanding client needs and developing solutions that actually solve their problems. This approach has broken every sales record in company history. The clients have made their preferences clear. And if those preferences aren't honored? Eleanor asked. I met her gaze directly. Then the company risks losing 83% of its current revenue within 30 days. Devin slammed his hand on the table. This is blackmail. No, I replied evenly. This is consequences. Eleanor studied me for a long moment. What would you propose as a solution? A restructuring, I said simply. One that aligns company interests with client needs and properly values those who generate results. The tension in the room was palpable as Eleanor considered her options. Devin glared at me with naked hatred, while the executive team exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Eleanor nodded. We'll take a brief recess to discuss this internally. Please give us 30 minutes. As the video call ended, Eleanor turned to Devin. Your office. Now. Then to me. Quinn, please, wait here. As they left, Terry leaned over. Well played, he murmured, though extremely risky. I smiled slightly. The best moves always are. For 28 minutes, I sat alone in the conference room, watching the digital clock on the wall mark time with silent precision. I didn't check my phone. I didn't review notes. I simply waited, knowing that whatever happened next would determine the trajectory of my career. At exactly the 30-minute mark, the door opened. Eleanor entered alone, her expression unreadable. Walk with me, she said. We moved silently through the corridor to her corner office. Unlike Devin's space, with its ostentatious displays, Eleanor's office was elegant and understated, achievement that didn't need to announce itself. Sit, she said, gesturing to a chair as she closed the door. I complied, maintaining perfect posture despite the tension coiling inside me. In 30 years of business, she began, I've never encountered quite this situation. Her tone wasn't angry, merely analytical. You've effectively created a scenario where our company's success is tied directly to you personally. The clients made their own decisions, I pointed out. A small smile touched her lips. After you carefully laid the groundwork. Don't misunderstand. I'm not criticizing. I'm impressed. It was methodically executed. She leaned back in her chair. Devin is, naturally, calling for your immediate termination, which would trigger the contract clauses, I said. Precisely. He seems to believe the clients are bluffing. They're not. Eleanor nodded slowly. I don't believe they are either, which leaves us with limited options. She studied me. What do you actually want, Quinn? It was the question I'd been waiting for. Recognition for results, compensation commensurate with value created, and leadership that supports client-focused approaches rather than undermining them. Reasonable requests, she agreed, though implementing them creates certain complications. Such as Devin's position, I suggested. Such as Devin's position, she confirmed. He structured things to make himself seemingly indispensable. Seemingly being the operative word, I noted. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. You've found a way around the supplier agreements. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. The territorial exclusivity is assigned to the senior sales director position, not to Devin personally. The contracts don't specify who holds that title. Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. You're not just negotiating for better terms. You want his job. I want the authority to properly serve our clients and grow our business, I corrected. Whether that comes with his title or a new position is secondary. Eleanor stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city skyline. Devin has been with us for 12 years. And in that time, he's structured the company to serve his interests above everyone else's, including yours, I pointed out. She turned back to me. Tell me about Vince Reynolds. The question caught me off guard. How do you know that you've been meeting with him? That his consultancy has filed partnership papers with your name on them? She smiled thinly. I didn't become CEO by being unobservant, Quinn. I decided complete honesty was my only option. It's my contingency plan. If this conversation had gone differently, I would have resigned today and joined his firm. Several key clients would likely have followed within 30 days. And now? That depends on what happens next. Eleanor returned to her desk and pressed the intercom. Send them in. The door opened, and Terry entered, followed by Marissa and Paolo. Devin was notably absent. We've reached a decision, Eleanor announced. Effective immediately, we're creating a new position, Chief Client Officer, responsible for our key account strategies and implementation approaches. Quinn will assume this role, with commensurate compensation and equity participation. My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. And the reporting structure? You'll report directly to me, Eleanor said. Devin will remain as sales director, focusing on new business development, but all existing major accounts will fall under your purview. That arrangement won't work, I said quietly. Devin will undermine any parallel structure. Eleanor's expression hardened slightly. Devin has been given two options: accept the new structure or tender his resignation. He's currently considering his position. Before I could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Devin's voice carried clearly through the door. This is ridiculous. You can't let her dictate terms. The door burst open, and Devin stood there, face flushed with anger, his gaze locked on me with pure hatred. You engineered this whole thing, he spat. Turned my clients against me, manipulated contracts. This is corporate sabotage. Eleanor's voice cut through his tirade. Devin, your options have been clearly presented. What's your decision? He pointed an accusing finger at me. You'll regret this. All of you. Those clients are loyal to me, not her. The contracts suggest otherwise, Terry observed mildly. Devin turned to Eleanor. 12 years I've given this company. 12 years of record growth. And this is how you repay me? By handing everything to her? Not everything, Eleanor corrected. Just the responsibilities she's proven better equipped to handle. For a moment, I thought Devin might actually lunge across the room. Instead, he straightened his tie with shaking hands. Keep the job, he said coldly. I resign. Effective immediately. Eleanor nodded. Security will assist you in clearing out your office. As Devin turned to leave, I called after him. Devin. He paused but didn't turn around. Do you remember what you said to me last week? I asked. About not being worried about replacing me? His shoulders stiffened. It's interesting, I continued, how quickly things can change. Without another word, he walked out. The room was silent for a moment before Eleanor turned to me. Your first challenge as Chief Client Officer will be stabilizing those client relationships. They need reassurance that their concerns have been addressed. I'll call them immediately. I agreed. And Quinn? Eleanor added. I assume your discussions with Vince Reynolds are now concluded? I met her gaze evenly. They are. Good. Because I expect absolute loyalty from my executive team. You'll have it, I promised. As long as it's reciprocal. She nodded, understanding the implicit boundary I'd drawn. The board meets on Thursday. I'll need you to present your client strategy moving forward. I'll be ready. As the others filed out, Terry lingered. That was either the bravest or most reckless career move I've ever witnessed, he said quietly. I'm still not sure which. I smiled. Sometimes you have to risk everything to gain anything worth having. 6 months later, I stood at the podium during our annual company meeting, presenting the quarterly results. Revenue had increased 42%. Client retention stood at 97%. Our stock had climbed 36%. In the front row sat Eleanor, nodding approvingly as I outlined our expanded client-centered approach. The team had doubled in size, with each account manager now trained in my methodology, understanding client challenges first, then developing customized solutions. After the presentation, Eleanor joined me at the refreshment table. The board is extremely pleased, she said, handing me a glass of champagne, particularly with how smoothly the transition went. Most of the clients didn't even notice, I replied. They just knew their needs were being met. And Devin? I smiled slightly. From what I hear, he's struggling to rebuild his network. Apparently, when you build relationships based solely on position rather than value, they don't transfer well. Eleanor studied me over her glass. You know, when you orchestrated that takeover, I wasn't entirely sure whether to be impressed or concerned. Having someone capable of such strategic thinking has proven valuable, but also somewhat unsettling. I prefer to think of it as alignment, I said, ensuring that everyone's interests, clients, company, and employees are properly balanced. Just make sure our interests remain aligned, she said with a meaningful look. As long as we continue valuing results over politics, we will be, I assured her. As Eleanor moved away to speak with board members, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from Laurel at Merston, confirming their contract renewal with a 30% increase in order volume. I smiled to myself, thinking of Devon's words that day in his office. I'm not worried about replacing you. He should have been. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about workplace justice. Have you ever been undervalued despite breaking records? Share your experience in the comments below. Remember, sometimes the most powerful response isn't immediate confrontation, it's strategic patience and perfect timing.